We are glad to welcome you to our free webinar, Breaking the Cycle, Investing in Women's Economic Empowerment to End Gender-Based Violence. This is part of our contribution to creating awareness during the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And we are glad to have you here. Do remember to follow us on our different social media platforms, which we will emphasize again. We'll put in the chat box. And at the end of our discussions, we'll put it up, we'll talk about it again and put it up for all to follow. I'm just going to immediately go ahead and introduce our speaker so that he has enough time to give his presentation. Then we will take our questions or comments from the house and have a good time discussing the topic at hand. Then we will close out. Kindly permit me to introduce Dr. Reginald Ikechukwu Chima. We are really, really glad that we could get him to come here and give this presentation. Dr. Reginald Chima works at the United Nations Population Fund. He just retired as the Regional Monitoring and Evaluation Advisor for East and Southern Africa. And he was formerly the advisor for the 46 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. He holds a doctorate degree in economics from the University of Nigeria. He holds a postdoctoral Master of Business Administration from the University of London and a UNDP World Bank WHO postdoctoral fellow at the University of London. He is an associate member of the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. He's a member of the Institute of Directors of the United Kingdom and the Institute of Directors of South Africa as well. Dr. Chima has executive education on negotiation and managerial decision-making, ethics and integrity, strategic leadership, and results-based management from top universities in the world, such as the Brookings Institution in Washington, D.C., the Harvard Business School in Boston, the United Nations System Staff College in Turin, Italy, the University of Stellenbosch Business School in Stellenbosch, South Africa. He has a career spanning over 35 years as an international scholar, senior university lecturer in economics, a senior policy advisor, and a seasoned diplomat, having worked with the United Nations for 25 years. He has dedicated over 25 years of his international career transforming actions into lessons and promoting innovative ways for institutions to apply the knowledge derived from large multilateral programs and projects towards accelerating development and growth in Africa. He has extensive international experience working with the World Bank, the World Health Organization, and growth, UNAIDS, UNECA, UNCTAD, USAID, IDRC, NSF, and many other institutions in Africa and around the world. He has led and managed large projects and initiatives in Africa, including the US $56 million multilateral project that was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the African Youth Alliance project in Africa, and he has coordinated the multilateral evaluation of the International Health Partnership Compact, as well as over 50 country program and project evaluations and midterm reviews. He has over 25 years experience in national planning, corporate governance, strategic program and project management, business modeling and risk management, public-private negotiation, and policy dialogue on economic, business, and social programs and policies within the African continent. He has extensive experience working with bilateral and multilateral stakeholders, networks of influential leaders, advocates, and partners. He has been the Regional Monitoring and Evaluation Advisor, supporting the UNFPF to the Economic Commission for Africa, the African Union, and the New Economic Partnership for African Development, the Economic Community of West African States, the Southern African Development Community, the East African Community, the Manu River Union, and the Indian Ocean Islands Commission. Dr. Reginald Chima has over 20 years as a member of the United Nations Population Fund Interdivisional Multidisciplinary Advisory Group on the development of fund-wide strategic plans, business plans, human resource strategy, results-based management strategy and policy, evaluation policy, organizational learning and career management. He was the chairman of the United Nations Staff Association for 6 years, with responsibility to lead the diverse, multicultural, and multidisciplinary team of 300 United Nations staff at the regional offices in Johannesburg, South Africa. Dr. Reginald Chima has traveled to, worked, and lived in many countries around the world, including Switzerland, United Kingdom, the United States of America, Egypt, Turkey, Ukraine, Thailand, Costa Rica, Belize, Kenya, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Namibia, Mozambique, Madagascar, South Africa, Tanzania, Lesotho, and Eswatini. It is not a tiny person we have brought before you today, and if we were physical, I can assure you we would all be on our feet to give a rousing welcome to Dr. Reginald Chima. We're so honored to have you here. And I'm going to share my screen so that you can start. Thank you so much for being here. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope you can see me now.
Yes, we can, sir.
The bio is like a Bible, you know. I mean, you've done very well to let us hear it. You know, I'm a humble man, and that's exactly who I am. You know, for those of you who know me very well, who have seen me, some of you have seen me many years ago, some 10 years ago, some even 20 years ago. I know many of you I can see here haven't seen me for the past 25 years, as a matter of fact. But thank God we're here together. Frankly, it is a very interesting moment, once again in the history of humanity, that we are looking at the activism against violence against women. I mean, this is one of the things that I encountered when I joined the UN that brought tears to my eyes. And I was asking, from the day I joined the UN till the day I exited the UN and retired, the question has always been with me that who is truly benefiting from this thing? Who really is benefiting from violating women? Who? We know that during wars, when there is war, somebody is benefiting from the war, either the suppliers of weak weapons, or one way or the other, the nation states and the leadership, somebody will benefit. Some buy estates, some buy all kinds of things with it, clothing and all kinds of things, shops. But who exactly, is my question from my childhood, benefits from this kind of violence that is endless? Is endless. You know, it's been there for centuries, and it now looks as though, you know, the humanity has to live with it for the rest of the time the universe will be here. But we're saying no, blunt no, and no again to gender-based violence. We know who is doing it at this stage, and we can talk to them. But this time around, we're looking at the economics of this whole thing. Clearly, I'm an economist, seasoned, experienced, for a long time. And so I'm looking at it from the point of view of investing in women to empower them economically, to take away the firewood from the fire, to end gender-based violence, so that no woman can live or will live in this world again, especially in our country, Nigeria and Africa, wondering who will save me in the hand of this abusive and violent person. So that is the call. We got to break this cycle. We got to break this cycle. And by investing in women, the first thing I want to ask again is, can you go to the next slide? Let's go. Let's go now. Let's go, using our tool. Good. It is estimated that if we end violence against women, let's get it clear from me. This is fact. If we end gender-based violence in Nigeria, for example, and close the gender gap in that country, Nigeria's economy will have added 229 billion to the country's GDP over the next 10 years. I mean, if somebody is benefiting from this arrogance and this wickedness of beating women, maiming them, killing them, we are saying the alternative to that, economically speaking, is that if you stop doing it in Nigeria, Nigerian economy will have $229 billion within the next 10 years. And mark you, this is over and above Nigeria's national population. So it will make every individual, man, woman, and child in Nigeria a billionaire. That's what it is. So anytime a man slaps his wife, anytime you spit at your wife, you are spitting at your own 1 billion. You are slapping your own 1 billion. And that's why poverty is all over the place. It's horrendous. We blame other things, but the core of this is the habit of violating the women folk. So, and we're saying again that investing in women's economic empowerment is one of the most effective strategies to end gender-based violence. There's no other way, frankly speaking. We've tested them, you will hear them right now. There's no better way to terminate the scourge of gender-based violence in our society. This is because financial independence gives the woman the power to live and walk away from abusive relationships. Yeah, she can walk away if she's empowered, if she has money. She doesn't have to beg anybody to stay under the horrible abusive environment where they are going through, rejection and all kinds of things, harmful norms, and then they can have to live well and live in safer communities. This is what the world is all about, So that is my introduction, that we have to look at this from the point of view of benefits. And the benefit is that if we stop violating the women in Nigeria, we're going to have $229 billion added to Nigeria's gross domestic product or national income over the next 10 years. Can you imagine that? Who can make that kind of profit? You see? So, and it can be even earlier. It can be earlier. Let's go. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. The question is, again, does economic empowerment matter? Does economic empowerment matter? Does it matter, really? Because I was speaking to some woman, she says, oh, no, you economists, you always know how to speak and twist grammar. And we're saying, does economic empowerment matter? It's a big question. Because financial dependence fuels gender-based violence. It has been tested and tried and found true. Financial dependence fuels it. There's no better word to use than the word fuel. It puts fuel on the gender-based violence, the violence against women. And many abusers use economic and financial control. That is the reality. You can tell the truth. Those of you who are women in this forum, Many abusers, many of those who violate women use economic and financial control, restricting access to money, jobs, or property to trap women in violent relationships. Can you imagine that? We know what's going on, we know what's going on. Economic empowerment breaks this cycle. That is the point. If you empower the woman economically, when women have income, assets, skills, they gain bargaining power in households and communities, making it easier to resist or leave abusive relationships. This is it. When they have these things, they can resist. They can walk away from any abusive relationship and leave the violator, alone. And we see it every day now. Many of the young women who are empowered just walk away, return the dowry. Now, GBV, as we call it, or gender-based violence, has huge economic costs. Beyond the human toll, intimate partner violence, friend, the one we call intimate partner violence, costs economies billions of dollars annually in healthcare, lost productivity, and social services. Intimate partner violence. When your best friend becomes your number one enemy. When your lover becomes the hippopotamus in the house, it will cost the family, it will cost the community, it will cost the government, and it will cost faith-based organizations where we all belong. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Please, next slide. Okay. So the issue is what? Can you go back a bit? I don't know where I think you jumped the slide. Aha. Let's look at the causes of this thing from the point of view of an economist. The first cause is unemployment and poverty. This is as glaring as possible when you go to the villages, the rural areas. It's so glaring because the women cannot cover it with flashy clothes. They don't cover it. They're still wearing worn out clothes, barefooted, traveling from one forest to the other, behind one man with bare chest. So high unemployment rates, especially among women in Nigeria and many African countries, leave many women financially dependent on men. Financially dependent on men, making it harder to leave abusive partnerships. The female unemployment rate in Nigeria was about 6.2% in the first quarter of 2024, according to National Bureau of Statistics. And this is above the male unemployment rate of 4.3. 4.3. 4.3. Female unemployment at 6.2, male unemployment at 4.3. Look at the margin, the disparity. You see? And so economic exclusion, what we call economic exclusion, when women often face economic exclusion from ownership of economic and financial resources. In some cultures, a man's daughter gets married and gets nothing. Once she marries away, she gets nothing. Or she gets some gifts on the wedding day if they can afford it. You need to attend the wedding in the rural areas and see what they get. Some get some pieces of yam, or some vegetables, and that is it. Exclusion. Then comes financial inequality, unequal access to finance, even when they go to the banks. They can't even go to the banks to borrow money. No collateral. You see, unequal income, no property in their name, resources, reinforcing power imbalances. Every property they are going to own is written first in the man's name, and that's it. It belongs to the man. Even when she works her life out to purchase that property, it's written in the man's name. And when the man dies, his brothers and sisters come for war to snatch from her the only property, which is where she lives, and render her homeless. Men may use economic control, which I've said before, as a tool of coercion, restricting women's access to money. It's happening everywhere. You have many women who don't have bank accounts, many of them. No, but some have not even seen a bank or entered a bank. Economic power disparities, can sometimes buy protection. While poorer women, especially those in rural communities, face compounded risks due to cultural barriers and systemic inequality. These disparities marginalize the women folk and make them vulnerable to violence. And so economic stress and violence is the daily occurrence. Men experiencing economic hardship may resort to violence as a way to reassert control, linking financial insecurity directly to violence and abusive behavior. This is what we are seeing. This is the point of view of an economist. We know that individuals are milking this situation, and using it as a ploy to survive. And we are saying no to this. And we are saying no to this. It's unacceptable. It will not go on unpunished. Next one, please. Next slide. Thank you. So let's explore a little bit about economic power disparities, which compounds gender-based violence among women in Nigeria by reinforcing dependency, limiting autonomy, and exposing them to systemic and interpersonal abuse. This is just serious. Financial dependence on men, which is what we see every day. Rural women often lack access to paid employment. Who will employ them? They don't have access to land ownership or credit. This dependence makes it difficult to leave abusive relationships, as survival is tied to male-controlled resources. This is the truth. This happens in the family, happens in the community, happens within the ambits of the culture. It happens also in religious organizations, in faith-based organizations. You see, even if you read the Bible, let me give you an example. You read the Bible, you have so many injunctions that don't allow the women to speak in church. Can you imagine that? If you cough in church, you have committed a sin. This is part of the whole thing. Economic violence as control. It is being used as control. When the Bible talks about the contribution of the woman to the economy of the church, it is described as the widow's mite. Excuse me. Why didn't they say the widower's mite or the men's mite? The wealth of the woman is considered as a mite. You see? So economic violence as control. Men may deliberately restrict women's access to money, property, education, using economic deprivation as a form of coercion and abuse. That's my point. Underrepresentation in decision-making and politics. Women in rural areas are frequently excluded from leadership and community decision-making, reinforcing power imbalances that normalize violence. So, the Council of Elders is all men, old men with gray hair. When a young woman is going to be married, they organize themselves as elders and go and drink the wine and eat the good food and walk away. So it's really a challenge. To also note that educational barriers are included. Girls are often withdrawn from school earlier than boys, limiting their future earning potential, and perpetuating cycles of poverty and vulnerability. Imagine that. A young girl, beautiful girl, who went to school, couldn't finish, and a man who will not even be her taste will come and marry her for nothing. This is mind-boggling. Now, sometimes the intersection with harmful traditions and practices as child marriage, given away as a child, and society's preference to sonship, reduce women's economic opportunities, leaving them exposed to gender-based violence. This is my diagnosis. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, do we have evidence for this? Do we have evidence for this in Nigeria? Look at it. Employment inequality. Over 31.7% of Nigerian women aged 15 plus live below the international poverty line, compared to 5.2% of men. 31.7% of women and 5.2% of men. This is incomparable. Incomparable. Unpaid care burden. Rural women carry disproportionate responsibility for domestic work, limiting their ability to participate in the formal economy. Can you imagine? They go to the farm, they come and cook and take food to the farm and come back and cook again, take care of the babies, feed the babies, all kinds of things that are not paid for, services that are not accounted for. And finally, political exclusion. As of 2024, only 3.9% of seats in Nigeria's parliament were held by women, reflecting systemic barriers to participation, influence, and policymaking. And even the ones that are there in the parliament are being chased around, chased out, chased in, withdrawn, been banned. It's all part of the whole mentality of denying and depriving the country the 229 billion that we're supposed to get in 10 years by stopping gender-based violence. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. Here it is. So what do we do about this? That's why I was invited to this meeting. What's the solution to this? And I say, yes, it is to invest in women's economic empowerment, not just investing in women's empowerment, no, it is to invest in women's economic empowerment. That is the core. That is the central point of this whole fracas. We're facing for years. My mom faced it. My sisters are facing it. All of the women I know have been through it one way or the other. Psychosocial, psychological, deprivation and violence, all kinds of things going on. So let's look at them. First, investing in economic empowerment. Second, investing in technology and artificial intelligence. I'll tell you why. Third, corporate social responsibility. 4, legislative and policy balance. 5, participation, inclusion, and involvement of women. This is it. If we can gather around these 5 icons and pursue them with decisive and very meaningful investment, I think we shall go a long way to stopping this gender-based violence. Let's open up. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the question now is, let's leave the investment in women aside, economic empowerment, but let's dive in through artificial intelligence. And we're saying, does artificial intelligence matter for women's empowerment and gender-based violence? Does it matter? Does AI matter? And I'm saying AI strengthens economic empowerment by expanding access to knowledge, financial services, and opportunities, especially for marginalized groups, such as rural women, youth, small businesses, and entrepreneurs. You see, I was in Nigeria not long ago. I went to the flea markets. We call them here flea markets, which is dominated by women, rural women, selling produce. The distinction I saw is that they were now holding, what do you call this? This pay point, the POS. They're holding POS. So you can pay for your produce with the POS. You just tap it, it goes. And they get the money. You see? So they're empowered. You don't have to drag them to the bank to pay them. You pay right there. So they come to the market with their produce, you pay them, they get their money, it goes into it is so nice. It's so wonderful. It's so beautiful. Because if they carry the cash home, if you pay them cash and they carry it home, the men folk, either on the way or at home, will grab the money and walk away with it with impunity. Now they tap it and they go to the bank. Nobody can then, steal it from them. Number two, AI breaks barriers to entry. Because they have learned to trade and they've mastered how to use the POS and document and register their sales, AI breaks the barriers to entry. You can enter the market at any time, any day, anywhere. It improves productivity and creates inclusive pathways for growth. That is AI. That's AI. So it is no longer a men's issue. It's also now a women's opportunity. So we see it that way. And AI's role in financial inclusion and rural women's empowerment is particularly important and relevant. It directly reduces the economic vulnerabilities that compound violence. Yes, it diminishes the economic vulnerabilities because when she sells and makes money and her bank account swells, she can buy land, she can buy Okada, she can buy a car, she can buy a house, she is now empowered. She can do the things that are her desire and not to wait for the man who may not get there. Imagine you have a man, all he's doing is to be drinking beer, alcohol, falling apart every day. That's doom right there. But once she has enjoyed financial inclusion and has access to technology, to the AI, she can move on nicely. She can move on. And finally, AI strengthens economic empowerment by giving people, especially women, the tools to learn, yes, the tools to earn, and the tools to lead, especially women who historically were excluded from economic systems for a long time. Excluded from economic systems. Sometimes I wish my grandmother was alive to meet AI. She would have done better. She would have been a billionaire. But so let's move on and see what the rest will tell us. Next one, next slide. Next slide. Thank you. Now, tackling gender-based violence in Nigeria's rural areas require integrating economic empowerment with legal, cultural, and social reform. So it is not a one-way track. It has to be, a web of action. Expanding women's access to land and credit and inheritance. Oh, yes. Investing in rural education and vocational training to empower the girls and the women. Strengthening legal protections against economic violence, economic and financial violence. Ensuring that women claim equal rights in households. Community engagement programs that challenge harmful forms and promote shared decision-making. Now, when these are what women are looking for. And so we tackle it from the four pathways, and ensure that it goes well and the women can have access to resources to do well in this life. Next one. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now let's look at. I was here as a young man in the university when there was no Ministry of Women in government. Do you remember? There was a time the government, not only Nigeria but around Africa, didn't have Ministry of Women. I was already in the UN, working for the UN around Africa, all the countries that time, when we were advocating for the governments to now open Ministry of Women Affairs and so on. But let's look at it from the point of view of economics, the investment, pathways. How much does Nigerian government allocate to women's affairs? And I put it from 2020 to 2025. Let's do the first part, 2020 to 2023. And you can see it there. So small. Every year, first year, 2020, I saw 10.2 billion only. 21, 15.3 billion. 22, 35.7 billion is increasing a bit. 2023, 17.1 billion. So, in the trillion budgets of Nigerian government, this is what government could allocate to women affairs. 10 billion, 15 billion, 17 billion. Look at that. This is the issue. This is the crux of the matter. the investment is not working because the quantum, the muscle of financial, investments to deal with this issue is a paltry sum of 10 billion. 10 billion, which is less than what they're using to build somebody's house, at the headquarters. Look at next slide. Let's see next slide. Next slide. So in 2024, it was 6 billion, 6.5 billion. And of that 6.5 billion, only 18% of capital votes were released, which amounts to 869.8 million. So even when they claim the billions, they only release millions. So it's really laughable, frankly speaking. So they pay NEPA and pay telecoms, overhead costs, pay for fuel, pay for driver. That's it. No action. And then 2025, they got this big windfall, 78 billion, which is a cracker. It's a huge increase to 68 billion. Counterpart funding for World Bank projects, fine. 7.4 billion earmarked for core capital projects and 2.6 billion for personnel. But 810 million for overheads now. You see. So, but the totality of this whole argument is that less than 1% of national budget is what we are investing. We are investing less than 1% of national budget to tackle gender-based violence and all the related issues. So we conclude the allocations to Women Affairs Ministry have consistently remained below 1% of Nigeria's total annual budget. This is just a story and very, very pathetic. Let's go to the next slide and then we'll deal with this issue clearly. Let's see what he's telling us, what this means. So, experience, we're saying Nigeria's Federal Ministry of Women Affairs has historically received very small allocations, but in 2025, its budget jumped dramatically. It's a miracle. It becomes a miracle, like we say, to 78.5 billion due to counterpart funding for a World Bank project. In 2024, the ministry allocation was only 6.5 billion. But just the next year, the World Bank saved us and it jumped in with 7.5 billion. Nigeria's Federal Ministry of Women Affairs 2025 budget allocation 78.5 billion is largely driven by 68 billion in counterpart funding for a World Bank Women's Empowerment Project. You see? The remaining 10.5 billion is split across capital projects, personnel, and overhead. So when you look at the capital project component of that 10.5 billion, it is just laughable. Nigeria's 78.5 billion Ministry of Women Affairs 25 budget targets rural women across all 36 states and the FCT. But specific capital projects highlight priority states, communities such as Kano, Zamfara, Kogi, Kebbi, and conflict-affected areas in the Northeast. Yeah, we understand that, but look at it. When we say 78.5 billion, it's only a proportion, a fraction of the 10.5 billion that's going for these states. Look at that. What can that achieve for them? And this is Naira, not dollars. Okay, next slide. And so let's break down this 78.5 billion allocation. 68 billion counterpart funding for World Bank projects, the single largest component earmarked to support women in Nigeria, NFWP, Nigeria for Women program, or the scale-up of that. The funds will be used to expand rural women's access to credit, livelihood support, climate smart agriculture, and women affinity groups, of which 7.4 billion core capital projects, direct ministry-led initiatives, including entrepreneurship, vocational training for women in tailoring, fashion, agro-processing, provision of empowerment materials, for victims of disasters, rainstorms, flood, and even terrorism, and community-based projects in states like Zamfara, Kogi, targeting women in rural areas. We're just looking at the priority states, but this is the women problem in Nigeria pervades. It's all over, let's be frank. It's all over the 36 states, including Abuja. It's too bad. Let's go. Next slide. Next slide. So, what are the key empowerment programs that these monies are looking at? The Nigerian Women's Economic Empowerment Policy and Action Plan, which is a government-led roadmap to accelerate reforms and promote women's full participation in the economy, focusing on land rights, equal pay, workplace protections, and transitions from informal to formal employment. UN Women's Climate Smart Agriculture Initiative, affirmative procurement reforms, biogas production for rural women, and social protection programs, as well as grassroots agricultural support. The point is that these elements we are investing in as empowerment for women are old stories. To my mind, they are old stories. They've been there since I was in kindergarten. It's about firewood, biogas. When they use the big word biogas, you think it's petroleum gas. No, this is firewood. It's about grassroots agricultural support. Women are making up to 70% of Nigeria's farming population. 70%. And for all these things I've listed here, you are only investing a fraction of 10-point-something billion. So we're still behind in this matter. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. So Nigerian government will support from international partners, invest hundreds of millions of dollars annually in women's empowerment programs. The flagship initiative is Nigerian for Women program, the NFWP, which receives a 500 million scale-up investment in 2003 from the World Bank to expand government-led efforts. So we've gone through this. These things have been there. 2003, 2008, the WEE. And we know. But the question is, all these million, billion, you hear it, but go into it. We saw that it's only a fraction of 10 billion. And when you spray it across the 36 states and volatile areas, it comes to nothing. Frankly, it comes to nothing. It can't do the job. Next slide, please. And so, in conclusion, Nigeria invests hundreds of millions annually in women's empowerment, with the NFW scale-up of 500 million being the most significant recent commitment. These funds are channeled into rural livelihoods, financial inclusion, and structural reforms to close gender gaps and ultimately end gender-based violence. And I want to add this as a footnote, that we should put our money where our mouth goes, or put our mouth where our money goes. And even in putting that, the mouth must be commensurate with the amount of money you put there. You cannot put small change and talk more than you should talk. So there is a bit of suffocation when you look at the plight of women, even at the highest places in the parliament. It is really not a happy moment for me. Being a man, having a mother, having a beautiful wife, having my daughter, having my friends with their wives and children, having you, all of you, as my own friends and colleagues and fellows, to face this situation that generations have faced and we have not made progress. So I want to thank you for the time you spent to listen to me. Let's go into questions and I will hear you. Over to you. Over to you.
Thank you so much,
Dr.
Dr. Reginald. Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Wow. To tell you the truth, I I learned a lot just listening and finding out that investing in women has actually been proven to show a difference with regards to GBV. And it has even been calculated in terms of the amount of money that would mean to Nigeria. Please, if you have a question, just kindly put your hand up and then I will call you. But because I have the microphone, I'm going to be the first person to ask my questions and make my comments before others do. I want to thank you so much for that presentation. It was quite interesting for me. And all I kept thinking was, how can we manage this, within the context of Africa? Our context is patriarchal. It's skewed, in my opinion. It's skewed largely to the man. It's like deeply rooted in our beliefs and our norms. It's gotten to the point where the average modern young woman that you meet is just waiting to meet a rich man and then live off comfortably. That is, you can imagine that is how she's thinking. That's her thinking. That financial independence or financial freedom comes when I have a guy that will give me money for my wigs and buy me a car and buy me a house. And that is the way we think. And to me, it looks like the problem is so large because how do we change that thinking? How do we make the woman start to understand her value in being financially independent? I mean, we used to think when my children were younger, I used to say, oh, may my daughter marry a rich man, until one day my husband corrected me and said, no, that's not the prayer to pray. The prayer to pray is, may she be a rich woman. And I thought and thought and thought about it for years. I kept thinking about it. I realized that even my thinking was for us to marry, you marry the rich man and then the rich man will give you. And I hadn't even allowed it to sink into my head that no, you be the rich woman. You be the rich woman. Don't wait for the man. So that's just an example. I was brought up in the western part of Nigeria where they talk about education being, so high as compared to maybe other parts of Nigeria where the women are not allowed to work and things like that. And I still had that mindset. So how do we even start to change those norms, those cultural norms, those beliefs that, oh, we need a man savior to give us money, and that's the real freedom. How do we make that is on one aspect. And then the other aspect, how do we make our government understand that you're actually sowing into the women? You're sowing into the country by investing in the women. You're going to reap a very large amount of money eventually if you will just be patient and give more money into women. I don't know. I don't know if I've made any sense, but I'm really curious to know your thoughts on what I've just thrown out. That's from me.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Shola. Dr. Shola, that is powerful. That is powerful. And that is the reasoning that pervades the unconscionable, situation. I was listening to somebody about 2 days ago, and he was talking about the young girls who are wearing all kinds of clothes with hair something from China and things like that, and putting makeup and all. And I said to him, we've gone so low. We have tolerated this beast of gender-based violence for too long that we have gone so low that the little girl is raising herself and raising her parents. Can you imagine that? The young girl, 10 years old, is raising herself and raising her parents. And who is benefiting from this? The male folk. So, you see, society has gone down. Now, to answer the first part of your question is this. I remember the Dr. Ngozo Konji-Iweala, who was Minister of Finance some time ago, and then World Bank, managing director for a term, for a season. He was Minister of Foreign Affairs also in Nigeria, the Wonder Girl, and she's currently the DG of the World Trade Organization. Now, she said something which I took also for my own life, and I told my daughter. I told my daughter this. She said, if they don't accept Nigeria as a member of the G7, up to G20, by the time they don't accept it in G20, form your own G. That's what Ngozi told us. Ngozi said, form your own G. There are many from G1 to 20, you're not there. G21 should be your own. Form your own. Form your own G. So society has been very ridiculous about, tying the hands of women and bending them over to say, unless you accept what we say, then you're not going to have it. Who said that? Who said, if the culture is against you, form your own culture? That is my position. Because this thing is so bad. It's so bad. I come from Imo State, which is the heartbeat of, Igbo land. I was 2 years old during the war. And the war, instead of being war between soldiers, men, it was now war between Nigerian soldiers and women in the Igbo land. It is really, I was there. No, I'm not trying to, fake it. I was 2 years old in the war. I came out from the war 7 years old. The war was not between soldiers. The war was between Nigerian soldiers and the women, the girls and women in Igbo land. Go ask anybody. I was there. I'm not playing fiction. That is the truth. And I said, if they don't want to fight their men folk, guys, ladies, get your own guns and fight them. Because this is the reality. You can't be subdued forever. You cannot be subjected forever. So that's one. Number two is the second part of your question. If you wait for government, you will not get anywhere. I've shown you. They talk big, 78 billion, billion, but when you drill down, you find that it comes to a fraction of 100 million. What is that? Hoping against hope. So to crush the hope of women and make them hopeless and to drill the dagger further inside is to turn the whole thing into a mirage and helplessness. So what am I saying? Make the investment yourself as a woman. Move. Take the AI. Get your own speed point. Move. Have your own farms. Buy the farms. Put money together. Do things that can help you economically and make it big. Make it big. Look at the parliament. Look at the parliament. Less than 39%. When I say 39%, that sounds big, but you can count them with your finger. How many women are there? How many women are there? There's no balance. You go to the cultures, almost 99.9% of the traditional rulers in Nigeria, east, west, north, and south, are men. Where are you going to escape from? So the way to go is to go through what I've said. Use tech. AI is free from any legal problems. If you get the speed point, do your own business. Open your own account. Do your own warehouse. Sell them and make money. The bottom line is money. If you have it, you can make it. Next question, please. Shola, I hope I've tried on your question.
Yes, sir. You have. Thank you so much. I love the part about making your own culture. And I think that's what we're seeing now, people challenging the culture on how to bring up the male and female children and, emphasizing the fact that we shouldn't be focused on gender rules. I mean, who determines the rules and who determines that? I mean, that's what we're seeing now. So yes, thank you so much. Please, do we have questions from the house or comments? There's a question and a comment in the chat box. We can see Ugochi Obi talking about patriarchy and how quickly gender roles are evolving. How can men adapt positively to these changes and understand healthy masculinity? There are instances where women empowerment has led to more violence. Thank you, Ugochi, because if you recall, sir, some years, just a few years ago, when the feminism movement became so global, there was quite a lot of pushback from males about, people asking, are you a feminist too? It was like there was this anger and irritation by men with women wanting to be feminist and thinking that it challenges them and questioning their control. So this question that Ugochi is really asking, I hope you can answer for us your own perspective on this. Thank you.
I want to make it more difficult for myself. Ugochi, have you guys heard of that question that, these things come like seasons, like waves and seasons, this masculinity problem, they were asking, what is she bringing to the table? Have you heard that? Dr. Shola, have you heard that before?
Yes, we have.
And who began that question? Who forged that question?
I'm going to say the men.
Yeah, you can say it, because now the point here is that, you don't expect it to be a free pass when you arise to make progress in this world as a woman. You're not going to get a free pass. The resistance and the attacks will come from the opposite sex. And therefore, you must have thick skin to go through. When a woman makes money and becomes rich, they will still want her to marry a cheap lackey who has not made progress to anywhere, sitting down and drinking beer morning till night. No. What I'm saying is that empowerment is not just a matter of talk. Is that you are empowered from birth as a woman. I tell my daughter this. You're empowered. Anybody asking you that, what are you bringing to the table? Whose table is that? Face them. Whose table are you talking about? Your table or his table? Because the men can't even afford the table in the first place. If you buy table, your own table will be bigger and nicer because you bring food as a mom. Men's table will be full of beer and things. So let me not go down that way. The point here is that, when we say positive masculinity or feminism, when did these things come into play? How? Because we had a society that was very fantastic. A virgin society that was not nomenclaturized to the point that such questions are coming in. Feminism, this and that. Oh, you won't get married. Who said that? And when did marriage become, an index of prosperity? When? If you strive, you make it. That is the bottom line. Your objective is not to fight anybody or quarrel with anybody. Friend, go and make the money. Buy your own house, build your house, furnish it very well, buy your car, build your own company, your industry, make money, recruit them, and be independent, and then live a good life. Pure and simple. Pure and simple. And stop running forward and looking backwards or sideways. Don't look sideways. Wrong. Go ahead. Make it. Make it. Make it. So I wanted to answer that question as a layman, to say, I'm a man also. I'm a man also. The system we have is a system that is fraught with misguided principles. If you go to the United Kingdom and you abuse a woman as a man, even by word, by sending WhatsApp that insults a woman, you are gone. They will chase you out of the house and give her the house. Because that's where the law has been purified to take into account the sanctity of the womanhood. You don't go to UK and mess up there. The police will just single you out and take you out, put you in jail, nice and clean. But in Nigeria, they will chase you out of the parliament, take all the media, fire you left and right. There is nothing like all those things. Be the woman. I tell my children, my daughter, this: be the woman. Don't look sideways. Don't look backwards. Be the woman. your dream and your desire is paramount. God-given. You are not given life by a man. You are given life by God. So why are you now trying to listen to people to moderate your choice and decisions in life? Don't do that. So in sum, the bottom line is this. Do it as you learn it, as you grow with it. Make it big, make it large, be a blessing to society. Show the world that the woman is still the big icing that's beyond the cake. That's what I'm talking about.
Wow.
Thank you very much. Back to you.
Sir. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Reginald. We have another question here from Temitope Ogumbi. He says, our justice system has perpetuated GBV because victims rarely get justice. Without addressing this gap, victims will not heal because they do not get justice. How can we address the challenge in our justice system? I believe there are laws, but the challenge seems to be enforcement. How might we address this gap?
It's not only enforcement, my dear. Now, this issue of violence it does not mean that the male judges are angels. They're not. No, they're not. I'm a senior seasoned diplomat of 25 years. I know colleagues who are suffocating their wives, refusing to send them to school. Imagine you're making money, you're a professor, but your wife is nobody. Has no elementary school certificate. And she's quiet, subdued. Look at it. If you do a census of the status of the wives of the judges or the lawyers, you will see shame come from heaven and earth. So the fact that somebody is a lawyer or a judge does not make him an angel. The violence content it pervades. It is pervading. It's pervading. And I say it with all sincerity. How about pastors, imams, who beat their wives before they come to church? Is it not the Bible that said, it's forbidden for a woman to speak in church? So now look at all those injunctions. Misappropriated and misapplied by individuals inside the justice system and outside it. The society is warped. That's why I'm saying my point of view of empowerment is that the young woman must find her way. Go for the money. Make it. Do business. It's an open game. Because your ideas on how to improve your life and the lot of your family may be better and superior to the ones of the boys. They may have more time, more leeway. But if you know what to do and you do it right, you will make it also big. You see? So that content is sacrosanct. But in terms of the legal system, who wrote the law for us in Nigeria? Have you checked out their wives? The man writing the law inside that parliament, go and check their wife. You don't have to worry about what they're postulating and pontificating inside the assembly. First of all, evaluate their families. Look at their wife. See if their wives have even mouth to say amen. To subdue them. So, and this is the man making the law. So I don't expect wonders. But we must keep the upright arm to say, if you violate a woman, you go to jail for it. Simple and straight. If you violate a woman, you go to jail for it. That is the shortest way to put it. So we are not going to depend on these so-called angels in parliament. No, they're not getting it. You're not getting it.
Thank you so much, sir.
Do what you can do and make it big. Thank you, my dear. So let's move on. Any questions again?
There's one question from Dr. Timothy Ayuba. He says gender-based violence is not only based on the opportunity or limitations that women face. It is about power imbalance created by both the social and political system. It is gender-based because men too suffer from this imbalance. Otherwise, it would be a woman-based violence. So I think he's trying to say that we need to also highlight the fact that men are also abused, not just women.
Yeah. As an evaluation advisor for 25 years for Africa, I've traveled to countries that are highly patriarchal. Highly patriarchal. I remember one of the visits I made to a certain country, I wouldn't name the country, and I was conducting evaluation in that place. And I saw a man that had his mouth swollen. And I asked him, what happened to you, bruh? He was ashamed to say that his wife punched him. It was the daughter who laughed and said, Mommy punched him on the mouth. Now that's violence. That's violence. But if you look beneath that, because you have to look at I understand and I agree with Tim about the other side, the balancing of the gender and the sexes. But the point is that look at the underlying content. Every day you go out to this village square and drink and drink and drink and fall apart, bringing home nothing. And the woman will strive, and you come back and punch her and collect the money that she makes every day. And then one day she snaps and gives you a punch. That now becomes GBV. I know it's GBV for the men, but rarely do you see men suffer the kind of economic marginalization that I've described today. Think about it. Is there any man that is suffering financial restriction, not allowed to own assets, not allowed to own a bank account, not allowed to own property? Go to the villages and see what's going on. This is macabre. And I believe that the way to go about it is not to compare. I had a comparison between Nigeria and South Africa. I didn't present it here, to see the progress being made across the region, across some countries. Nigeria is like this. There are some countries you go to, my dear, you tiptoe. You find that it's like, who will save you? I mean, one day I was in my hotel after a mission to a certain country, and I was weeping. It's like, who will save these women? Small boys are abusing them on the street everywhere, and they have no qualms, no control. Nigeria has law. Nigeria, we're contending with bigger issues. But in some of the countries, it's not part of my presentation, there is no help. No help. No help. So I understand the other side and the balance. But the real issue is the core of the matter, that the woman is violated. And let's agree to it. Let's accept it. And let's say no more to this kind of violence. And it's not by punching only. The punch is just, for me, circumstantial. But the fact that there's an ingrained limitation, tie off, stigmatizing the woman that says, I'm a feminist. You stigmatize the woman. So what? Stigmatize. She can say she's whatever she wants to be. Does that change her from being a human being? Because you limit her prosperity, her prospects. You cut her off from school, cut her off from playing around, only make her an object of sex. Excuse me, whose daughter are you going to make like that? Some men are really doing it now. You take care of your daughter. Draw the line. Any man coming there will smell the rat. Because it's no longer easy to hand over your daughter to the man. Because you have to look deep down beyond the boy and look at the parents and look at the family. If they are beating the women that are there. If it happened once, don't let your daughter go there. And that's what we're facing. It's a societal, revolution to say GBV must end. Violence against women of any sort must come to an end. We don't know who is benefiting from it, but if we stop it, Nigeria will benefit 29 billion in 10 years. Now that's my offer. That's my offer. Take it and then stop the violence.
Oh, leave it. All right. Thank you so much, sir. We have one last comment from Frank Yawon. He says, in some communities, GBV is seen as a legitimate way for men to assert authority. Even women in such cultures feel that violence is a form of correction from men. Changing such cultural norms will be a very difficult task. And sir, it reminds me of a particular couple that I lived opposites to at a point in my life. I mean, they would fight, you know. Everybody will see the guys beating up the woman. She's running around crying. Believe you me, it might be just a few hours later, we'll just see them hand in hand, holding themselves, all loving. I used to get so perplexed with it. But it's true what Frank says. Some women think that that is what is the normal. They are meant to be beaten. As you know, in fact, they will tell you, it's my mouth. It's my mouth safe, you know. So how do you change those kind of perceptions and beliefs? It's a difficult thing.
Now, in economics, we call it game theory. We call it the prisoner's dilemma. It's a prisoner's dilemma. When a woman has been subjected to a cycle of violence that creates a pseudo culture in her, there's a culture in the culture, and that culture tolerates and accepts whatever will be, will be. You know that story. So it becomes that kind of story. Say, well, you know, men will beat me. They beat me. I had a colleague of mine many years ago in a foreign country, an African lady, beautiful lady, and she told the ombudsman and said, why are you troubling us with sexual harassment? In Africa, we want our men to harass us. And the colleague, the ombudsman laughed his head off. So it's not right for you to be harassed. Then I spoke to the ombudsman. I said, you see, there is a problem in the problem. Frank, today we're not dealing with the problem in the problem. You know, we're dealing with the problem itself head on. There are diversities of women's, warped perception of life based on the scale and the axis of violence and the caging system they've been through. When a woman has known violence from her youth as a young girl, and now she's adult, she's married, and the husband perpetrates the violence, shuts her up inside, locks her inside the house, starves her of food and sex, shouts at her, judges. There's so much. I mean, men also. The bottom line is this. Let's face it. There is the mutation of violence against women. That mutation is when the virus begins to eat itself. There's a virus that is concentrated in a woman's life that subdues her psyche to the point that she accepts violence as a makeup of her life. Excuse me, who does that? That is what we're talking about. That this is not right. This creation of a new kind of life inside the women folk that subdues them and makes them vulnerable totally for life is not acceptable. There's a better life and a better world here. God did not create the world and give it to one man. He gave it to all of us equal balance. It's a colorful world, a beautiful world of opportunities, and every woman is welcome to enjoy it. That's my position as a professional, as a father, as a husband, and as a grandfather. This is what it is, Prim. So, Frank, you're right, but I want to point to the core of it. It is the evolution of a problem in a problem. A new culture is emerging from inside the woman, accepting and swallowing violence as a necessary end for her survival. That too is gender-based violence, and we don't accept it. It must stop. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reginald. It must stop. That's the essence of what we're doing by participating in the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. We are very, very glad to have had you, Dr. Regina Chima, with us today. You have given us very interesting economic perspectives to gender-based violence. And I must say that I've enjoyed this session, and I'm sure so have a lot of people that have joined us, if not everybody. Thank you so much for your time, sir. We really appreciate you. On behalf of Empower to Thrive Development Initiative, we say thank you so much. And I want to say thank you to every single person that joined, You have been fantastic. Thank you for the comments, the questions. Thank you for the love shown. Please remember to connect with us on our social media pages. It's in the chat box, whether it is Instagram or the YouTube channel. We'll be